I have a letter here from the HSE that I received on the 13th of July this year in relation to a constituent of my own. This relates to a 10-year-old boy who was referred to the Child Development Team of the HSE in February 2016 from Enable Ireland. He has a diagnosis of developmental coordination disorder from Enable Therapy Services from August 2017. So this young boy needs support from the Child Development Team, psychotherapy services. Recall now, this is going back to 2016. The information that I received in July of this year is that the current wait time for psychotherapy intervention is extensive. However, the service will make contact with the family as soon as an appointment becomes available. Imagine, Chairman, if you were the parent of that child, and that's the clarification you receive from a child who needs support from 2016. This child also needs support from the occupational therapy service, and again there's an acknowledgement that the child was referred to the Child Development Team back in 2016, and there's acknowledgement that he's currently on the occupational therapy waiting list for intervention. No date given. Indication that there may be an appointment within the next 3 months. And this child also needs to meet with the psychology services. And again, this is going back to September 2015, when there was a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. In September 2015, since that time, he has been on the psychology waiting list. He received the psychology input from the primary care and received a psychology appointment with the Child Development Team in 2017. He was then placed on a high priority waiting list for an individual psychology work. He's still waiting. That is a scandalous legacy issue pertaining to a child with special needs, and I know of countless other cases. So my question, and particularly to the Inclusion Ireland representatives, is that type of scenario particular to my own constituency in Cavan Monaghan, or is it prevalent, and is there any indication at all as to exactly how many children are in that position, and how many families are going through the absolutely traumatic ordeal of knowing that their child needs support and not being able to receive those supports?
To make the point, obviously, that this is Covid-19 response, the sectoral committees will hopefully be up and running soon. I'm not going to prevent Inclusion Ireland in any way from answering the question.
The reason I asked the question, Cahirlock, is because the inference has been given that it's because of Covid-19 that there have been a delay in these services, and I'm just citing an example of where that isn't always the case. And if we're going to, if we're accepting that there's going to be additional problems as a result of COVID, well, then that really is reasonable. Going to provide.
If you felt there was an inference, it's actually what I said was it's compounded the issue of waiting lists, not an inference that any of that's a result of COVID. It's long-standing problems, and I've been in front of a couple of committees down through the years reiterating the issue around children's waiting lists. So COVID has certainly compounded, and those waiting lists are only going in a negative direction currently.
Do we have an indication at all, or do you in Inclusion Ireland have an indication as to how many children would be involved with waiting times of this nature?
September 2019, that's the most recent HSE's performance management report, is of September 2019. Approximately 10% of assessment needs were completed within the statutory time frame. I believe there was in and around 5,000 folks then that wouldn't have been seen within the statutory time frame. In terms of the waiting lists, there are approximately, it varies between 1,000 and 2,000 young people on waiting lists for in excess of 12 months for the various therapies that you were mentioning within that particular report. During the COVID period, I don't imagine that those waiting lists got any better. I'd imagine you could just tack 6 months on, because as we understand it, those therapy services have been significantly restricted due to the obvious inability to hold face-to-face therapeutic sessions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Deputy Carthy.